So I'm going to share my screen. I'm using a Miro board. I have a little cool graph here that we can look at as we have this talk. Can you see the Miro board there with knowing why the why is important?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Brian. So I've got why here in the middle. So this is how I walk folks through it when I'm asking questions before I build the backlog or start to commence work, doing some work with the company and some of those icons you saw in my bio page there. So first of all, I'm saying like, Brian, what's the big idea? What are you trying to accomplish? Then Brian and I have a conversation. Okay, he'll tell me some more information. I'm like, okay, so when that thing is done, what's your definition of done? Right? Anybody familiar with that term, definition of done?
Yes.
Yeah, so definition of done, if folks who don't know, is when that piece of work, before it goes out into the hands of the people who are going to be using it, you look at that definition of done to make sure that you meet it. So for me, the definition of done is sort of like the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. Think about when you go to the grocery store and you're going down the soup aisle and you pick that can of soup up. For every can of soup, there's the same information on it, right? When it was packed, how many calories, how many ounces, so on and so forth. That's what definition of done is for a body of work. And you always want to make sure that you include that in your backlog and have it right in front of you before you ship things out. Now, acceptance criteria is a little bit different, right? I would say acceptance criteria is more for exactly what the customer needs or that person is going to be using it immediately. And definition of done is more what the business needs, the business needs before they deliver it out. And now you can see how I'm flowing down to the delivery component here. Any questions on what I'm saying so far? Any thoughts so far?
I guess a question that I would have just to kind of from the flow of it is, so you've got your big idea, you start to get some of that understanding. Before you can jump into the work, do you factor into your conversations definition of ready?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
And that's really more for the team, right?
Yes.
Like what's their definition of ready? And what Brian is talking about, folks, is when you build your backlog, for me, here's my definition of ready. You have a clear description. You have the so that. It could be a system story, a job story, or a persona story. As the Agile coach for this seminar, I want to use Zoom so that I can do breakout rooms and share my Miro board. Right, that's a clear description of the so that, right? And then you have to have really good acceptance criteria. When that piece of work is done, what's going to have to happen? Mindy has to send me the link. We have to do the poll. We got to do some testing before the webinar comes. I have to tell everybody in the webinar that this is going to be a highly interactive, not a talking head kind of session. That's acceptance criteria for what we're doing right now. Now, some teams' definition of ready is another team's definition of done. This is when organizations have handoffs, right? If one team is building something and another team is supporting it, their definition of done equals their definition of ready. So they should be really identical. In fact, so much that other team that's going to be supporting it, we want to pull them in early as possible. Not too early, but the right reason, the right way, and the right time so that they can really start to help pull that piece in according to their definition of ready. Good afternoon, Unbound Solutions. Welcome to the program. How are you?
Doing great, thank you.
Great. What's your first name? Do you want to share your first name?
Oh yeah, sure. My name is Vidya.
Vidya? Nice.
Yeah.
Nice to see you, Vidya. Right. So yeah, so as we look at this diagram, this is how I think, and this is what I walk organizations through and walk teams through. And then you have the little persona thing that pops up, right? So why do we have a persona there? We want to make sure that we understand who that stakeholder or customer, who they are, and what kind of makes them tick, right? So within the definition of done and the big idea, now we want to really start to drill down on what are their pain points? What are they trying to accomplish? What's going to trigger them to pick up or use what you're developing for them? Once you have a clear understanding of what that persona is, I'm going to show a template of what personas look like. Once we have that understanding, we always keep that persona in front of us when we're building that work. Because a lot of times we get so focused and just so myopic on what we're doing, we kind of forget, like, oh, wait a minute, we're doing this for someone. Let's really stay connected to what they need and how they think, so that we can build it really the right way, build it fast with really high quality as we go through. Now, the persona, hopefully you're in touch with this stakeholder or this customer, and you're going to bring them into your cycles of work. And when I mean cycles of work, I do Scrum. So that being the sprint review, we want to make sure that that customer stakeholder and that person with that persona is actually hanging out with you at least once a week or every 2 weeks. I like 1 week sprints because you got 52 times a year to get it right. But some people do 2 week sprints, and I would advise no more than that, to have that feedback back from the customer. So I'm going to